Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Musicians Café. I'm over the moon, literally, for the guest of today, because I've been waiting for this moment for long and with joy and curiosity, because the person who will be having a chat with us today is Moni Simeonov, a fantastic violinist and a teacher in Los Angeles. And since I saw some of his content on the social media, I was really struck and I loved everything that he posted. But first of all, let me say welcome back to everybody and thank you for watching. And if you are new to this project, let me just explain very quickly what is this about. So Sunday Musicians Café, as you can read, is a project that I started last year by myself. With the idea of really trying to answer that annoying question that I'm sure if you're a musician or someone involved in the music industry, you received once, which is how musicians make a living. And it's so frustrating and annoying, obviously, that still today the world doesn't get that music can be a job. But also I realized soon myself that we sometimes cannot understand and ourselves, so we don't know ourselves, so how we can make a living as musicians, because traditionally we have this in mind that we have only these 3-4 paths you can take as a musician. You take a solo path, chamber music, teaching, and that's it, but actually there are so many different ways of being a musician, not just making music. So this project, all of these interviews with my friends and people that I've been knowing, or maybe we met online directly and we know through social media content, basically, is a way of trying to answer that question and showing that there are many different people. So I didn't just invited people in classical music. Obviously that's majority, because I'm a classical violinist myself. So I know more people in that industry, in that field, but also pop musicians, jazz musicians, programmers, conductors, or managers, artist management. So there are so many different different way of being a musician. So thank you so much for watching. I think today we're gonna have a fantastic chat with Moni Simeonov. But before inviting him very quickly, I would like to ask you, how are you guys? And please do not hesitate to send messages or curiosities or questions you have in the chat here below. If we can answer to that, it will be very cool, obviously. And please tell us also, where are you listening from? It's always very interesting to see that this podcast is being followed all over the world. and incredibly, the guest of today actually is in Los Angeles at the moment, and Moni is a teacher in Colburn University. So it's 8 a.m. I believe in there. So thank you so much, Moni, and let's invite him then to have this great. Okay, wait a second. Okay. Okay, now you can hear me probably. Yeah. Something is happening here. Okay, let's accept his invitation. Normally it works the opposite way, but it's okay. There we go. Yeah. Yes. There we go.
Just a second. I'm gonna
You can
try
switch
to
the
reverse.
camera. Try. There is a button.
Sure.
Switch in selfie mode.
Yeah, I'm looking for that button. Oh yeah, I think it's right here in the
That's it.
comment.
That's it.
Can you see me now?
We made it. You know, Instagram sometimes fails me so many times. It's such a difficult application. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you well now.
Fantastic, Moni. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having this chat today. And as I was telling people watching, there is 8 a.m. So please, guys, be considerate. I don't know. He is a very morning person, apparently. You said it's not that early.
No, it's not that early. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for being here. I look forward to speaking with you today.
Of course, of course. I mean, I introduced you very quickly. I mean, I didn't say much, to be fair. But I would like you to wait a second. You're frozen at the moment. Someone said Moni doesn't sleep. He's a superhero. He looks like a superhero, indeed. He's frozen. Can you hear me, guys? Yes. Can you hear him? Yeah, I don't know. It's frozen. Today is not looking great. The application is not it's not doing his job. Okay. Can you hear him? To me it looks frozen, his picture. But okay. Thank you guys for the feedback and trying to fix this problem now that I think I have. Thank you so much. We are gonna fix it immediately. Yes. Hopefully. Also, you have any questions or curiosity about musician's life? Please do drop a message here. I would like to answer if you have any. You can say hi to everybody. Dennis, hi Dennis. Salman, hi Salman. Internet seems strong. Not sure why it's not working. I don't know. Okay, go live with him. Let's try. Might be a problem of the application, really. It's the first time that happens. Maybe it's because it's from Los Angeles. I don't know. It's too far away. Normally, I do interviews in Europe. Apparently, it's easier. You have any questions, guys? In the meanwhile, I can answer. You're musicians, so just passionate music lovers. Okay. Now he joined the game.
Let's see if this one works. Sorry
Now
about that. I'm not exactly sure what's happening. Can you
I
guys
have
hear
no
me?
idea. I think it's because of it's too far away. Instagram is like, oh my
Is it?
days. Okay, we can actually start probably. And thank you so much again. And I was saying that I didn't say that much about your life, about your background and stuff, but I would like you to say something that you think is important, maybe some key moments, about your journey, because you are Bulgarian and you moved to the US quite early, right?
Right. Yeah. So I started playing violin in a family of musicians back in Bulgaria, and I started young. I think like most violinists, I started with ear training first, actually, like a year before I started playing the violin, which I think helps quite a bit. So, and when I was 15, I came to the States. I came to a boarding arts school in California.
Okay.
It's about an hour and a half away from Los Angeles, but there is probably snow there right now because it's so high in the mountains.
Okay.
And I spent my last 3 years of high school there, and then I went to do my college in New York. I did my graduate school in New Haven at Yale University, and then I met violinist Midori in New York, and then I moved to study with her for the next 7 years in California. I did my doctorate here and traveled around quite a bit with her and did all kinds of interesting musical things after coming to LA, and then I've stayed here since.
Wow. I mean, the journey is amazing, and it's really, I mean, Midori obviously is such an icon in the violin playing, and I don't know how, I never met her live. I mean, I saw her playing, but I never had a chance to actually talk to her. But how is she? How is she characterly? How is
She's a wonderful, giving, generous human being. She expects a lot of those around her, but she herself delivers quite a bit as well. I think every single former student of hers is still in her orbit, and she's been teaching for quite a while now.
Okay.
But she takes care of all of us. She sometimes edits our documents when we apply for jobs. She lent me a violin on which I played for 10 years. She never asked for it back. And then when I got my full-time job, I ended up buying that violin. I still have a bow of hers. So she takes care of students, and she takes care of students as well. So now she has personal interest in my students, and she tries to help see them through the next level. So it's the type of life that she's lived where she perhaps hasn't had the opportunity to develop as many friends and social contacts as like a normal non-violinist, non-concert violinist would. So when it comes to having close contacts, it usually comes from students, and so it's very much like a family. She would have us go to her studio and drink tea and talk to her and discuss things, and these types of relationships are very much like an apprenticeship rather than like a student-teaching relationship.
Wow, this is amazing. I mean, and it really makes me like I want to study with her.
Yeah.
You know, I want to join the family immediately.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I had this. I studied in Royal College in London here with Itzhak Rashkovsky. I don't know if you heard about him.
I know him. We overlapped at the Singapore Violin Festival in 2019. Yeah, we were there at the same time.
And I was my teacher. I mean, it's still
wonderful.
In school I graduated, but when I can, I play for him, obviously. And as you said, this concept and idea and reality, really, of a community and a family, for the first time in my life, I received it there. So with Itzhak, Itzhak created this, and he really takes care of the students in the way you said about Midori. I saw many things that you said in Itzhak as well. I think two good teachers, they do that.
Yeah.
Then,
I mean, I think
it's a good teacher for
violin
sure.
teaching
In a community of 40,000 people, basically.
Yeah. So violin teaching, I think, is such a, especially if you're doing it as the main bulk of your professional activities, it tends to be so consuming that if you don't enjoy it, you might as well just pick something else. But if you do enjoy it, then I think you enjoy it because of that aspect. Because students give back, and then you end up giving more, and then they end up giving you back more. So it's a wonderful relationship, and that's why if there is a particularly difficult student, we all try to get to the core of the problem to really influence them in a positive way, because that student is going to keep making your life happier and happier after that.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many questions to you because you first of all, you're very inspiring from all your contents, but already I'm talking to you now, and you're inspiring even more. So I have so many curiosity and questions. I mean, you always thought you would become a teacher when you were younger, violinist?
No, actually, no. I started studying studying with Midori in Los Angeles in 2007. So when I moved here, I started taking auditions, and I was playing with the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra. I was concertmaster for the Sacramento Philharmonic, and I was studying with the Los Angeles Opera, the Los Angeles Philharmonic as well. And parallel with my violin activities, I've always done, all kinds of sports-related things. And I was competing in judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I ended up tearing a muscle in my right shoulder.
Okay.
So I didn't think I would be able to play again. I stopped playing for about 6 months, and it was terrible pain. So I couldn't even brush my teeth. I couldn't shave my head with that arm.
Wow.
So it was, and I am right-handed. So, and that's when I started questioning some big things. I didn't even know if I could finish my degree. Midori said, well, we'll make it so that you can finish your degree. Maybe instead of your final recital, you can do a paper, and maybe you can do some of the other recitals, because you're supposed to do 6 recitals for that degree. And she said, maybe some of the other recitals that you haven't done yet, you can do them far into the future. But if you really don't think that playing is an option, then maybe you need to start thinking about teaching. And so she had me read all kinds of books about teaching, and not just teaching music. It was about coaching basketball and teaching English as a second language, teaching chess and stuff like that. And so I started to notice that in all these different areas of expertise, the background is the same. The facade is very different, of course, because once you show them how to shoot a free throw or how to do a Queen's Gambit opening, but the very background of the things, they are the same, because it is about balancing yourself, staying on the path, keeping ambition but not too much, having respect for the process, having respect for those that you are doing it with. And I just had this dream that I would sit in a chair in a corner of a room and have students come in, and I'll just tell them things with my words, and I'll never have to move or play or demonstrate, and they'll just sound good, And it was such a romantic and vivid idea that I had, and so I decided to just go for that. And I remember doing a presentation for one of my courses at USC when I was doing the doctorate. The presentation involved, the very beginning of it was, I showed on the board 10 quotes from 2 different books. One book was by Shinichi Suzuki, from the famous Suzuki violin method. It was called Nurtured by Love, right? So that I had 10 quotes of that book. And then I had 10 quotes from a book called Mind Over Muscle by Jigoro Kano, who is the creator of supposedly judo. I mean, he basically organized the principle of traditional jiu-jitsu into what we know as judo. And so I had 10 quotes from one book and 10 quotes from the other book, and my classmates could not guess which quote comes from which book, because really at the philosophical level, things are so similar. Yeah. So I think that this started informing the way I teach, and in even less philosophical sense, even when it comes simply to the strain on the body, the idea of effortlessness, what true technique means, what does it mean to connect to others, and so on. So these kinds of things, I think, are important to think about, and they're probably coming into the foreground now. But for many years, I think violin teachers knew violin, and they told you, please do not do other things because you'll end up hurting your hands, which is obviously a possibility. But I would go to judo class and come back, go to violin lesson, and I would hear some of the same stuff. And of course, Midori doesn't know much about martial arts, and my judo coach didn't know anything about violin.
Wow. I mean, to be fair, you enlightened me up because honestly, because all the teachers, they always say, they try to, to explain things when you're a little kid, and this happened to me as well. They obviously do the comparison with athletes, they say it's like in sports, it's like in martial arts, but actually none of them ever tried the martial arts or a sport, because back in the days, was not the thing. So also
Yeah.
myself, I was suggested to stop playing tennis, for example, when I
Yeah.
was 13, because of the elbow, all of the problems I would create and stuff. So, and I loved the violin, and it was like, okay, I stopped playing tennis, and also football. They didn't allow me to play football, and in a way, I mean, they never forced me, obviously, but they were suggesting also psychologically, this is bad. You're not going
Yeah.
in the right path. You're not taking care. But having a teacher like you that is actually an athlete, like like a real athlete. I mean, you did judo athletically. I mean, professionally. So that changed completely the picture, because you say no, but he can do it. I mean, obviously he plays amazing, and so there is no problem with that. And of course, as you said, the injury is a risk you take.
Yeah.
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 But probably what you earn is more than, and the risk is probably like you can accept the risk. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially at that age, I think the risk was definitely tolerable, and that particular risk did not end up in a net loss,
Yeah.
because I did learn quite a bit about myself, and that shaped my future. I'm much happier doing the bulk of my activities in teaching now. I mean, I play concerts all the time too, but I'm glad that I don't have to depend on that, because that is a more fragile existence, I think, psychologically and physically as well. And also there is a great time limit on it, and uh, I would like to teach until the day before I die, And I don't think that anyone is able to play until that type of ripe age, at least with the joy, quality, and expression that they had in their prime. And that is a kind of a sad thing that happens to performers sometimes. And yet, I do find that teachers, as long as they have their hearing and as long as they have their mental facility, they can only keep getting better until the very last day.
I mean, this summer and last summer, I went to Israel for Keshet Eilon, which
Oh,
is a course.
that's my old teacher used to teach there. And I know Isaac used to teach there for many years. Is he still there?
No, no, he's not. But
Oh,
you know who is still there, and he's gonna be this summer, talking about
cool.
teachers that will never die. Chaim Taub.
Wow. Okay.
He's 90.
Yeah.
I think he's 95 or 94, maybe.
Yeah.
And teaching last year, I was watching masterclass,
Mhm.
and also I played for him, and he has such an attentive ear at that
Yeah.
age. Like impressed, I was like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I could, like this at 94. It's incredible. It's incredible. But by the way, there are many followers of yours that say that you are a superhero, that you will never die. So shouldn't be.
Sorry, I can't read the comments, but this is it's a good thing to hear.
Listen, but thank you so much for sharing this, and I think this side of you that is very positive and sharing, you can immediately see on the social media. Yes, for example, and talking about a traditional way of teaching, traditional thinking as well, or maybe old way, or not just traditional, but maybe old in the past. You know for sure that everybody knows that informations are meant to be kept secret. You
Okay.
know,
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think
teacher.
I think that makes sense, right? Yeah.
Yes, of course makes sense. Of course makes sense. But at the same time, I think nowadays is more powerful the fact of sharing our own the knowledge that someone has. Obviously not everything. What you do, for example, is fantastic, because you give pills of knowledge about a violin technique, or for example, you provoke the question like, is this better than this or the other one? What do you think? This way of making content is absolute genius, and I think is really positive. It's really positive because it's, first of all, it's a good balance between sharing informations and at the same time provoking that self-doubt of someone, you know, practicing and say, yeah, you know, try to have a critical thinking of what we do.
Yeah.
And but when did you start this idea, I mean, of sharing immediately? Because I don't know, you clicked somehow probably.
Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of things that I've noticed, friends of mine and former teachers, all these little bits of knowledge that made a difference for me. I usually don't believe in quick solutions, because if someone just tells you, hey, just lower your elbow and you'll have a bigger sound. These kinds of things, they don't work very well. I think that the real improvement takes time, focus, and well, you just need to you need to lean into a new way of approaching a technical subject. But every once in a while, you come upon a discovery. For example, if you hold the bow like this, your up bow staccato gets faster. This sometimes actually does work. And I think that there are little bits of stuff like this that may work for some other people as well. So I decided to start sharing them. Plus, I think that there has been, you know, there are a few people that I know, some teachers that I respect too, who they swear off exercises. They say we shouldn't play scales, we shouldn't do double stop things, we should just do everything through our pieces. And I know that this is it's entropy in the universe is very powerful. Our natural state is one of being lazy, and so any excuse for that will work, especially on a student who is on the fence of practicing scales or not practicing scales. So I just want to cast always one more vote in the idea of doing the exercise, because I believe that we should be able to take the problem away, solve it in a controlled setting, and then put it back into the performance. Because obviously it is for the performance sake, for the connection's sake, not for the career's sake, but it is something that we do have to feel confident with on stage. It's like a fine Italian car that you need to fix something in the engine, and you will take it out and cast all the light on a surgical table and use tools, fix it, and then put it back in the car, rather than trying to fix it while you're racing the car, you know? So I do believe in having dedicated time for these types of exercises, very much like an athlete would be doing training that's away from their actual sport, so that they can dribble the ball better eventually. They wouldn't have to be fixing their posture while they're running and playing basketball. They would fix their posture when they're running on a running track, and then get back into the gym and actually have a better posture when they're playing their sport. So I think that I just wanted to be one more vote in that direction. That's all.
Yeah. This is so interesting, and I think it's a very innovative way of thinking about practicing as well. And but at the same time, when you were talking, I was thinking, yes, but also I need for sure someone that would be you, the teacher, obviously, that tells me which are the aspects I should focus on, because obviously in one when one is playing, you could spot so many problems potentially. You could spot so many problems, and then you need a method probably. And I think, I don't know, sometimes this is what I felt in my life as a violinist. Sometimes having too many options is problematic. The problem is having so many options that, you know, if you practice, it could work.
Yeah.
And you practice the other way, and you practice hard, and it could work. So the problem, how do we come out from this, maestro?
Maestro. I'll just tell you my solution, and this is also something that's informed by me reading books, watching videos, talking to people about various other things that are unrelated to music. I mean, you mentioned that there's so many options today, and really the saturation of information can be paralyzing.
Yes.
But what has worked for me is to notice how, let's say that we're talking about building a particular muscle. This is in strength training or bodybuilding.
Yeah.
If someone is saying, well, in order to build a bigger tricep, you need to do an exercise where the elbows are behind you. And another person says, no, 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 you need to do an exercise where the elbows are ahead of you.
Okay.
So there are plenty of videos to watch on both of these and 5 other ways of building tricep, right? And then by the time you watch all of these videos, or at least by the time you watch 10 of these videos, which is probably an average, probably people watch even more than that.
Yes.
Each video, let's say each video is only 2 minutes long. A set of that exercise will take you 40 seconds.
Yeah.
You could have done 1 week worth of exercises if you just picked one of those.
Yes.
So I think a lot of us are falling into the trap of seeking information, but not just seeking information, but this silly American concept, and I'm an American citizen now, so I can say it, of optimization, yeah, of optimizing everything. It doesn't have to be the best. Plus, in 10 years, they'll discover something that makes it even better. So then why don't you restart it then? It doesn't really matter, as long as you do something. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing. You just need to do something, and you need to stick with it. And so when it comes to what types of issues to fix, I would just say that having, if so I think with all of us, somewhere on the back of our minds, maybe on an idle Thursday afternoon, the thing that comes into our mind to fix, it's usually the thing to fix. We don't need to overthink it. There are a few things though. I mean, like if you want a checklist, I'll give you one. You can see what kinds of stuff teachers have been telling you in the last few years.
Okay.
They've probably said many things, but a few different teachers have probably told you one thing. Let's say that someone said your vibrato is too fast. Okay, well, if 2 teachers said your vibrato is too fast, then maybe there is some truth to it.
Yes.
Another thing that you can use as an idea is what kind of skill is somewhat deteriorated after 3 or 4 days of not practicing. You know, every once in a while you get sick or at least very busy, or maybe you travel a lot and then you can't quite get to your instrument for 3 or 4 days. What is that thing that starts to go wrong? And with some people, it may be big shifts. With some people, it may be the fourth finger. With some people, maybe the sound gets shaky. Some people, maybe they lose the fine control at the frog bow changes. With some people, maybe they lose the extended intervals. So whatever that thing is, that's also something to keep in mind. And perhaps most importantly, when you go on stage, certain things happen. What if bow gets shaky on stage?
Yes.
That's something that even if it doesn't happen in the practice room, it can absolutely be fixed in the practice room. Maybe when you go on stage, your vibrato is not nearly as expressive as usual. Maybe it just starts getting tighter, and that's maybe because you're pressing a little bit too much. You're not allowing for the natural friction to take place. So maybe it's intonation, maybe it's focus. It's all these technical things that can be exercised when the storm hasn't hit yet. It's like remember that fairy tale about the 3 little pigs, and they all build a house, and the last one builds a right. The last one builds a house of nice brick and whatever other contemporary materials. So I think that we should do that. We should build the house before the storm hits, not when you're getting ready for a recital a week from today, but when you're entering a long summer, such as now, and the performances and auditions are not going to be nearly as numerous, and you don't have to put things together for your torturous teacher every week. So you have time to actually address the important issues. And one final thing to say here is the issues that I had when I was 15 years old were the same issues that I had when I was 25. And they don't fix themselves. Very few things will end up fixing themselves just because you practice the repertoire. You will keep getting better. Everything will keep getting better. But compared to your greater techniques, the ones that are weak will remain weak. They may be much better from years ago, but they will still be weaker than what you had before. So in order to fix it, you just have to commit a couple of weeks, fix it, and then move on to the next one. And I think it's nice that way because you don't leave it to chance. You actually make a checklist of, okay, well, my fourth finger vibrato needs work. I'm going to do these exercises for the next month, and then I'll triage, I'll try to estimate again whether this is still a problem a month from now. And even if you don't nearly fix it in a month, you will get to know so much more about yourself when you're focused on that particular issue.
Maestro, I'm listening with my ears like this because this is so, first of all, it's so inspiring and it's so truthful, and it's such an innovative and fresh way of thinking. And the way you said, I loved this last thing when you said the problems that you had when you were 15 are the same and will never fix. I love this, but also you said another very nice thing, which was, now I don't remember. Wait a second. It was so good. No, honestly, I'm so happy this will be recorded because I'm gonna watch it firstly. This is really good. It's really good. And but you know, I mean, the way of practicing. Obviously, you mentioned the fact that we, you know, this American dream of efficiency, let's say, but the way of practicing, of course, in time you will get more efficient. But I think at the same time, the efficiency comes with patience, no? So the reality is that you are getting slower in a way in analyzing the problem. So you open the problem more, so you're getting more patient. So efficiency doesn't come from, you know, like a rational thinking, just rational thinking. It's just, maybe it's time spent, you know, like really trying to understand the problem and yes, I mean, try to fix it in multiple. What I normally say, for example, I don't know, correct me if it is wrong, but to my students or myself as well, to myself, when I have one problem, I try to divide it. So to, you know, not to approach it like frontally, but from one side to the another side, you know. So if I have a problem with intonation, I try to think about different things related to intonation. Maybe also posture is one problem. Maybe, you know, the way I press the fingers, you know, it's divided in many different ways, in many different aspects of it, you know. And so I think that's another way of approaching. I don't know if it's efficient, but
Oh, no, it's very good, especially with students. This works wonderfully. I think that this particular method of teaching is called scaffolding.
okay.
So, yeah, if you have a building that you're fixing and then you create the scaffold on the outside where the workers can work, and you kind of cover the building so that bricks don't fall on people. And when you take the scaffolding off, then things are fixed. It looks like a brand new building. This is something that we should be doing with our own problems, especially with students' problems. So very often, let's say you mentioned intonation and posture. You know, there are 12 violin things that we address every day, and the intonation is one of them for sure. So if a student or yourself has been so used to hearing the issue of intonation, they will become overly sensitive to it, to the point where as soon as they hear it, on the inside, they will roll their eyes. I mean, they know it's a problem, but they also know that they've tried to fix it 100 times and it doesn't work. So when you say intonation, so instead, I think, I mean, of course, as teachers, we have to think of synonym phrases, synonym concepts, so that we don't say the same thing.
Yes.
A very easy synonym would be pitch, but that gets exhausted pretty quickly too. So the kinds of things that you can work on then is to try to not even talk about intonation, but try to figure out how you can make them listen very carefully, and you can make them listen very carefully to something else. Yeah. They'll hear intonation as a byproduct. I love it. You can have them count the oscillations of vibrato on every note. Yes. But something that works even better is having them listen to the natural expressivity of each interval, melodic interval that is. So how la, da, sounds different from la, da. and to find how they like the inherent quality of each interval. Do they feel that the fourth is more open than the minor sixth? And when they have that in a melody, when they listen from the end of one note to the beginning of the other note, they will not only play it more in tune, but they'll be so much more focused on it. They will lose themselves in the sound. It's very much like if you are trying to catch a ball in a penalty kick in football, in soccer. It's one thing that works instead of just trying to catch the ball is to try to see the logo on the ball. And so whether you see the logo or not, if you're trying to see the logo, you will at least see the ball. So if you have them listen for the oscillation of the vibrato, they will hear the note. If you have them listen to the friction between the rosin on the bow and the rosin on the string, when they listen for that hissing sound, they will hear the pitch as well, because they can't hear one sound without hearing the other. So it's very much like you said, we have to zigzag around. We have to create something around the problem in order for the problem to be transformed into something that's actually solvable, and it doesn't create unnecessary mental and physical tension. But you were talking about another very important issue that I wanted to mention. You said something about patience and solving problems. Patience is absolutely needed. One thing, it's kind of like this weird dichotomy. We need patience in order to become efficient, but we also need deadlines in order to become efficient. And if we combine those two things, if we give ourselves enough of these miniature deadlines, which lead up to a big performance or a competition, if you give yourself enough of an incentive to practice for a particular deadline, that it's not the Queen Elizabeth, which is happening in less than a month, I think. But it's something that you have created yourself. So it's not that type of a hard deadline, and yet it's still like you're going to go and play for your friends. Maybe it's a studio class, maybe it's a house concert, maybe you're just going to get 10 people on Zoom and you'll play for them. That is enough of a deadline for you to feel like you need to prepare for, but not something that makes you feel like you have to go into crazy mode and cram practicing. Yeah. So then you can...
Sorry to interrupt. I was thinking like it's basically just the feeling of an urgency of working on something, but without the pressure of judgmental results.
Right. Yeah, it's so strange too. If you never feel a sense of urgency, then when you do feel a sense of urgency, it'll be actual urgency. But if you feel it on a regular basis, then you get so accustomed to it that you don't try to outdo yourself. You don't do things that you don't do on a regular basis. So, for example, one more example, since we've talked about her before, Midori and I, we've traveled a lot to many concerts. We've gone to, I don't know how many US states, but we've gone internationally as well. And it's a very interesting thing. I see her practicing the pieces of next week's concerts before going on stage to play the concert that she's about to go and play. Let's say that she's playing the Brahms concerto. And, someone like me, I would probably practice the Brahms concerto before going on stage. No, she's practicing the Nilsson because that's coming up later. And because she has had so many of these urgent type situations, she's more accustomed to just saying, well, next week is going to happen. The end of history is not going to be this week, right? This is not my last concert. I need to think beyond that. And I think allowing ourselves to think beyond that, kind of like in the world of competing in any kind of athletic endeavor, that's also very important. Because when you're doing your marathon preparation, maybe that marathon preparation is a preparation for an ultra marathon that's coming up. So you don't want to exhaust yourself to the extent where this marathon is the last time you're ever going to run, because it may actually end up becoming the last time you're ever going to run. But it also builds good habits, I think.
That's true. Yes. I mean, as you were talking about competitive environment in general and competition in general. I was thinking that obviously there are different kind and different type of deadlines that we can set for ourselves, and which they have different weights of obviously pressure, and competition is different from a concert. It's a different approach. Audition is another story, or a lesson is another story. But I never understood, because myself, I think I always struggle trying to find an answer to that. I'm not really a competition kind of violinist. I did some of them, and few, never won a big one. But I don't improve having a deadline as a competition. I improved much more, like technically as well, and artistically in general. I improved much more having concerts, for example, as a deadline for me. The more concerts I play, the better I become, and the more focus is my practice. Even though I still want to win a competition, obviously. But I don't know, what do you think about this? Do you think every student should at least try to go for competitions, or if you don't have the character, you should never try? What do you think about this?
I think that we should give our students enough exposure to all the things until they decide what they want.
Okay.
But I also think that it is in the student days that people should experience the things that they seem to not like at first. I think when you get to be your age, for example, you need to absolutely use your strengths, because that's how you're going to make a name for yourself and a career, and that's how you're ultimately going to be the happiest. But I think it is at the younger age that, for example, one needs to learn to play Mozart when they really don't like Mozart, because I don't know many little kids who enjoy interpreting Mozart violin sonatas, but that's usually the time when you should learn it, because you need to see all the paths open in front of you. If we just even talk about younger people and their desires, let's say a younger person, I don't know, like an 8-year-old kid opens the fridge and he sees broccoli, carrots, and Snickers. And they're obviously going to go for one thing unless they've been educated otherwise. So it's very much like that. Like if we just let people do what they want to do when they're little, then we're not good teachers. We can teach them how to do that particular thing very well, but I think that we need to just show them the whole roadmap, and they need to be in different places, because very often when that 8-year-old kid turns 28, maybe they will wish that they had experienced competitions when it was time, But on the other side of how we prepare for one and how we prepare for the other, I have a friend who is he's an extreme pacifist. He's vegan. He will never kill a living being, and yet he went to school through ROTC, which is this one program that they have in the States. It's an officer training in college. So they pay for your education, and then when you get out, you're an officer. So he is a sniper instructor for the Marines. And
for real?
Yeah, so he's an extremely great shooter, but he still will. I think that if there was a war that were about to happen, he'd probably desert. He would not go because he doesn't want to kill anything. But he does believe in the spiritual element in aiming for a target. And so, I mean, you've gone to Quichette, right? So you know how to do archery, right? Do they still do archery in Quichette?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So what I've asked him multiple times when he's talking about aiming and targets, because I give a lot of analogies with darts and archery as well. He said something that I think great violin teachers say as well. He says, "I never aim for the target." So this particular thing, I think, is a pretty big difference in the way we approach goal orientation in the Western tradition.
Okay.
So he says, I never aim for the target. And I said, what do you aim for? And he said, I don't need to align myself with the target. I need to align myself with my own rifle.
Okay.
And so he says, if I'm aligned with the rifle, and that to him means slowing down his heart rate,
Yeah.
and shooting right between his heart rates, because even a small shake of the heart rate can maybe make 1 millimeter of change
Yes.
at the level of the rifle, and then make 10 feet of change at the level of the target. So that's the first alignment with the rifle. Then after that, aligning his eyes with the sights and so on. He says, if I'm aligned with my rifle, it becomes an affair between me and the rifle, and that's much easier to control than any target. So he says, if I'm aligned with the target, with the rifle, then I will be able to hit any target that I need to. And I think that this is true for us as well. Sometimes you hear things like, when you're playing for 2,000 people in the concert hall, you gotta play big because the last row needs to hear you. Yeah, you can't change that type of stuff on stage, right? This is the type of stuff that you need to be doing in the practice room. And we need to be aligning ourselves with our instrument. And then whoever happens to hear will hear something great. And the other kind of paradoxical thing is when you are playing for one person, when you're speaking to one person, because we're so used to speaking to individuals rather than crowds, even the people who speak to crowds a lot, they're still more used to making a personal and intimate connection with one person.
Yes.
So all the inflections, the body language, everything is geared towards this one person. So the paradox is, if I'm speaking to a whole theater full of people, whether it's with my instrument or with my voice, if I feel like I'm speaking to 2,000 people, no one will feel special. But if I feel like I'm speaking to one person, everyone's going to feel like they're special because they're used to hearing personalized speech. So I think preparing for a competition and preparing for just a concert or any kind of a recording, it should just have the element of just you aligned with your instrument, making beautiful music directed towards one place, and then everyone is going to feel like they're hearing something that's made specially for them.
This is fantastic, and it reminded me of, I don't know if it was Isai or maybe a great violinist. He said once, he said when he was playing and they asked him, how can you actually communicate to the audience that well? And he was like, he said, I choose one person in the audience. And yeah. I think it was Isai, no? And he was like, I play for that person. And it's very similar, and I think it's very nice actually. And it gives you the also the it lowers your level of anxiety, because obviously
for sure.
2,000 people, yeah, it's too many to think about. One person, and it's, you know, it's normality. So the judgment, you also reduce the judgment to that person, so it becomes easier. This is such a, I mean, I don't know, I should take notes, because this is such a helpful chat, one of the best episodes. Absolutely, it's incredible. And one last thing, I know you're very busy and it's very early in the morning, so
actually, my next thing is not until 11, so I have plenty of time. So, however, I mean, if there are questions that our listeners have, I'll be happy to talk about anything. Yeah.
It's very helpful, yes. I mean, for example, very technical, but maybe it's very interesting, because for me it's a problem at the moment. I don't know. Sometimes my bow shakes, but in specific places. Obviously long notes, but where normally I'm better. I'm a better violinist. In those places I get more nervous. I don't know why. I don't know. It's like I played yesterday, literally yesterday. I was in Italy yesterday evening. I played a concert. It went very well. You know, they didn't shake that much, obviously, but it's subtle. So maybe the first row, the first two rows notice something. already at the back, nobody noticed, obviously. But it's not about what they notice. It's more about myself. You know,
of course.
it's like I want to be, you know, aware of what's happening and find myself in a happy place at least. You know. So it shakes. I don't know if it's related to a mental I have to work more on a mental aspect of the playing or a physical thing. Of course, you should know me better, and etc. But if you have any general ideas about the shaking of the bow, for example.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. So I'll mention two technical things, two purely physical things, and two mental things as well. Very often, I think, kind of like with mental issues that we may have, also with physical issues, we think that we're very special, but we're not special. I think the problems repeat themselves. That's why there are books of anatomy that the doctors, you know, if you have a pneumonia, it may be a slightly different pneumonia, but it's probably the same type of pneumonia that a million other people have too. So the problems are more easily solved. Even the mental problems are more easily solved that way when you know that however special you may be, you're special in other ways, but the problem is just like anyone else's and can be solved. So first the mental things, and then I'll tell you the physical stuff too. Obviously the bow is shaking because there is high pressure situation. Your bow is probably not shaking when you're just practicing, not even these passages, right? You don't have that type of technical issue, so it happens because of adrenaline, and it probably doesn't continue for the whole concert. It probably happens for the first 10 to 12 minutes of the concert until the adrenal gland stops producing, right? So the other mental thing is, so humans are capable of, unlike most animals, I don't know much about animal consciousness. I mean, I read books about it, but I think that people are generally unfamiliar still. But we're capable of something called metacognition, which means we're capable of thinking about the thinking. So that means that you can be afraid of fear. That means that you can be afraid of the potential of your bow shaking, which can actually cause the bow to shake. So if you probably have a very nice day, let's say that you had an awesome date the night before that with a new person, and you're looking forward to this super cool thing that's about to happen tomorrow, and tonight you have a concert, you are going to pay attention to your bow shaking kind of like secondhand smoke. You'll be like, oh, that's all right, don't worry about it. And then it'll shake much less because you're not fixating on it. But let's say that you hope that you're going to have a date last night and you know the person did not show up, and you don't have anything nice to look forward to tomorrow because there is just more of the same boring life that you have to do in order to continue living another day. Then you're going to pay attention to your bow shaking in a very different way. So that what I'm saying is that we can kind of control certain circumstances in our life to make sure that you're looking forward to good things, you know. But on the technical side of stuff, and I'll show you. So there is a muscle on both sides of our shoulders. It's called the trapezius muscle, right? So this is the muscle that lifts the shoulder up. It pulls the shoulder back, but in our case, it mostly just lifts the shoulder up. If this muscle that lifts the shoulder up is, and by the way, I should say that this muscle is extremely powerful because, you know, it lifts not just the shoulder, but all the weight that you may have in your arm that you're carrying a suitcase or whatever. So this muscle is very powerful, but it is also an evolutionarily triggered muscle. Every time something unpleasant happens, and this is not just unique to people, this happens to dogs too. I mean, I think whenever you see a dog trying to protect their neck, they will go like this, you know, so that another dog doesn't bite it. And you know, you get an email that is slightly offensive, your shoulder goes up a little bit. Someone cuts you off in traffic on the highway, your shoulder goes up a little bit. So we have to regularly release this tension, because if this muscle is Like if the shoulder is 1 millimeter higher than normal, then the muscle is already activated.
Okay.
It's very unfortunate. Yeah. So whenever we can, we should relax that muscle down. Sometimes as we approach the frog of the bow, the shoulder will tend to lift a little bit, and that's okay. But just as long as when you do the down bow, the shoulder goes down as well. Sometimes we lift the shoulder as we do the up bow, and then we forget to drop it as we're doing the right.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons here. And of course, this is something that you can work on by yourself. The other thing is there are muscles on this side of the forearm called the flexors, and muscles on this side called the extensors.
Yes.
The extensors are responsible for doing this, right?
Yes.
They do this.
Yes.
And the flexors do this. So the extensors are a little bit weaker, and unfortunately, whenever we do an up bow, we sometimes, so this is my wrist in a very neutral position, right?
Yes.
So this is, yeah, I'm just not doing, it's like limp. So if I were to do this, then this muscle here is now under some sort of tension.
Okay.
And that's why when we do a down bow, which is when the bow usually shakes, right? We go, and you probably remember, let me see if I can adjust this so I can see it better. My phone's gonna fall. Okay, so if I were to do a down bow, I start from just the shoulder doing the motion, and I transfer into just the elbow doing the motion, right?
Yes.
So there is a transfer that happens. The transfer happens at about the middle of the bow, like maybe a couple centimeters above. So we do just a nice down bow, only led by the shoulder. This angle stays the same. This is like a 90-degree angle, let's say. This angle stays the same until the shoulder no longer does the stroke, and then the stroke goes to the elbow. It's usually at the switching from this motion to this motion where the bow shake occurs, which is it's about at the middle of the bow. Unfortunately, that's where it happens. So you do a nice down bow, and then right. So I think you can do plenty of things to make sure that when the elbow takes over, this doesn't activate.
Okay.
And at first, what you could do is you can hold the bow, and I really don't like this type of hand position. Like this is not efficient for me. But you can just simply use it in order to hold the bow and have this be very limp. Do it a few times just to realize what it's like to do it with a completely relaxed extensor muscle. And then after that, you will still be able to, because when you're at the tip, you do need a little bit of this, you know. So then you will see when to do it, and maybe you can do it after you have made that transition between shoulder and elbow movement of the bow.
Wow, we should do this more often, Maestro, because this is starting to be really nice. I mean, it's starting to be. I mean, guys, can you appreciate the level of technical aspects that Moni is explaining now? Is absolutely incredible, and thank you so much, honestly, for sharing this. And I know I mean, I took notes, so I'm gonna practice after this. I'm gonna practice immediately, so I can understand. And but again, it comes to my mind: how can you be so positive on sharing these informations?
Oh, but what else is there to do with the information? I think that there's.
I know.
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, there's. But what is keeping the information going to do for me? I'm not a major artist that's going to reveal the secret that made me into a major artist. And it's also, I think that there is this cognitive dissonance, right? People may want to hold what they have on one side, but on the other side, they also want to share stuff with people. I mean, if something great happened to you, the first thing that you'll do is you want to go and tell your friends. And every time that I discover something like this, I mean, okay, let's say for a person like me who is not on the big stages regularly and who I don't make most of my money playing concertos, right? And so for a person like me, being able to do a good bow change at the frog 100 times by myself in the room is not nearly as pleasant as being able to see my students' joy when they learn to do that bow change.
Right, right. That sounds right. That sounds quite right. Yeah. Wow, wow. That's very inspiring again. I mean, I'm so grateful for this chat we had because it's really inspiring, and I think everybody will gonna love this. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart, Maestro, because this is such a good. If you've ever been to Italy, you should come.
I've been to Milan. One of my violins was made there,
Ah,
but I think it's a Carlo Antonio
ah,
Testore. But I,
nice.
yeah, but I've only been to Italy this one time, and just to visit friends. I haven't actually been to Florence or Rome or Naples.
And do you come
So.
often to London, UK? Because I'm based here at the moment. But
No, I would love to go. I have friends who live there, a bunch of Bulgarians actually, my former classmates, and one of them is, I think he's now assistant concertmaster maybe of the London Symphony or Philharmonic, I don't know which one. But I haven't had a chance to go either. I go to Asia more often than I go to Europe, unfortunately.
I see, I see. No, I mean, obviously you're basically always in LA, you're teaching in Colburn, right? Because obviously that is it very how is the schedule? Quite busy, or you have time for yourself as a teacher?
No, yeah, my teaching life is so free. I have, if I were to spread my teaching throughout the whole week, I have 3 hours of teaching a day, and that's about
Wow.
it. And then I have 5.5 months of vacation because every vacation coincides with my vacation, and uh, so I'm about to start traveling. Actually, at the end of mid-May, I start traveling, and I'll be traveling for about 4 months because I teach at different festivals. But these are things that are not related to my job. This is just,
Yeah.
what else am I gonna do? If I stay in LA, it'll be very boring. So I'll be traveling, and yeah, I won't see my house for a long time.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. You are going to enjoy your
Yeah.
house much more when you come back. That's
Hmm.
a good way of doing it. And what about social media? The other side of your, I think you spend a lot of time on creating content sometimes. So how do you manage it? There is someone helping you, or you do everything by yourself?
Oh, no one's helping. My students make me do it sometimes, but I don't think that anyone is helping uh, in more than just telling me to do things. Um, I I started Instagram as a New Year's resolution in 2023. So I've been doing it for a year and a half now, almost a year and a half. And uh, I try not to watch anything else because I know that this can suck you in. There's so many interesting things to watch, and so many silly things to watch too, and they're both just as enticing. So I try not to consume too much stuff. Every once in a while, when I have a specific question, I go and watch videos for that particular issue. Well, it's usually not violin related. It's usually about diets or weightlifting or running. And uh, or things to do at home, how to fix this, how to make that.
Yeah.
But social media it's been fun because I get lots of emails and comments, and people have questions, and they download some of my exercises, and then they ask me how to do them, and I feel useful. I feel like in 1 hour of teaching, I can make a difference for one person, but in 1 hour of making a video, I get to make a small difference, but in many more
Yes.
people's practice day. Because the way I imagine it, and it's probably completely wrong, but I'll keep imagining it that way. Uh, I like to think that when someone sees an exercise of practicing seconds instead of octaves, then maybe they'll try it today. And maybe because practicing seconds is more difficult than practicing octaves, they'll end up practicing octaves today. And maybe that's the reason why they
Yeah.
practiced octaves today. Maybe without seeing my stupid second exercise, they would not even practice octaves. So I think in the overall net positive in the violin world, I feel like I'm trying to contribute to it.
No, I Absolutely, you are doing it because I'm one of the consumer of your video. So I enjoy all of them. Also the fun one, I really like them, and you know they give a very nice outlook of all the profile you have, and also you're quite consistent, so that helps. That helps a lot. Do you see any negative side of your own content, social media content? Because obviously we know that there are silly things that you said as well. But do you ever feel? Sometimes I feel as a content creator myself, I feel sometimes I'm part of the problem, you know. So I have a sense of guilt sometimes of being like part of this mechanism, vicious mechanism. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Think about this.
Yeah, I think that there's so much stuff out there that it's going to end up eating the time of the young people, and not just young people. I think people of any age. Not many people right now have defense mechanisms against this. I feel like the generation that is about to be born, like this year, maybe they will know better. Maybe it will be something like, for example, I'll just give you a simple example. In about 2009, 2010, almost everyone in California stopped smoking cigarettes. Like it was a very rapid shift in aesthetics. And but the way people look at cigarettes now is probably the way my parents' generation looked at people who were chewing tobacco back in the day.
Ah, yes.
And it is very much probably going to be the way 10 years from now people look at vaping. Okay, so similarly, I think we will learn how to deal with this impulse to open a social media app and start scrolling through silly videos and then realize that you spend 3 hours today, and that's pretty conservative, just watching things like that. In these 3 hours over the course of a month, you could probably learn the basics of a foreign language, and that's a big thing.
Yes.
So I think that people will eventually realize how to deal with this. Unfortunately, the current population may not be among those who have that inborn self-defense system. So they'll end up spending the time watching it anyway. But instead of watching someone fall down the stairs or someone get embarrassed on the street, they
They watch.
probably will have a, well, no, watching something,
No,
however silly it is, at least it's related to our art, and it makes us feel slightly more dorky about it, and then you feel like there is a community because people liked it,
yes.
and so you don't feel alone for being the only dork who plays classical music in your middle school. I don't know.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. I know you're very busy, and I think we can finish the chat here. And but I always ask this at the end of every interview. Again, thank you so much for the time, and you gave us so many important tips, and already you gave us so many inspiring things to talk about with our own friends and to think about ourselves. But if you have a very small tip, or you think a key quality that you think a young musician should have today, to improve or to make their own way on the music industry?
Yeah, I think keeping objectivity, and I don't just mean that in terms of seeing the industry and where you belong in that industry, but also objectivity in terms of hearing every single piece of sound that comes out of your instrument, feeling how your fingertips lie on top of the bow, what the string feels like under your finger, that type of objectivity. And once you take a look inside, then all kinds of other fears and things that usually keep us paralyzed from making the next step, they start to disappear. It's almost like when you take a deeper look at what the fear feels like, the fear starts to go away because it's no longer controlling you. You're seeing it as a neutral observer. Same thing here. Once you decide to really listen to the intonation that has been bothering you for a while, it is no longer a powerful force over you. It just becomes one issue that you solve little by little. So I think keeping objectivity is important, and it's particularly difficult when there are so many pieces of information flying around. But the only real guide is your own objectivity. Everything else is an illusion.
Wow. Thank you so much, Moni. It was really precious, and we'll keep it in mind for sure. And
Thank you
again,
very much.
thank you, and I hope you're gonna have a wonderful Sunday of rest,
Thank
walk,
you.
whatever you have to do, but enjoy every moment of it. And
Thank you.
again, thank you so much. Please do keep following the Sunday Musicians Café. I hope in the future there
Yeah.
will be very interesting episodes also for you. And that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for having me. Thank you for everyone for watching.
Of course. Thank you so much. What a fantastic episode again. This was the number 36 or 37 or something. So guys, really stay tuned for all the next episodes, because I think from now on they're gonna be incredibly inspiring as this one. And it's been 1 hour. This one is the only one. It's the first episode that I've been keeping so long, because I was so interested myself in what he was saying. Obviously, he's a violin teacher, so as a violinist myself, I was very curious on all the aspects, technical aspects. And I'm sorry if maybe we were too technical, but I'm sure this will be very helpful for many of the violinists on the social media platforms that we share, in which we share all of this. And do please follow Moni if you didn't yet. And follow me if you want to have more inspiring episodes like these ones. Also send any feedbacks or comments you would like to me to read. If you think there is any aspect that I should improve, do please send any feedbacks. It helps me a lot on growing, and I'll see you next Sunday then. Ciao.